a good judge, was fondled, sexually assaulted by a bad sheriff. We covered this from day one. That sheriff in the state of Georgia has now pleaded guilty. He decided to literally walk up to a judge, grab her by the breast in front of other police officers. Judge Glenda Hatchett, one of the best people you'll ever meet. They were at a conference. Her date was a former sheriff. He intervened, had to get physical, grabbed the hand of the sheriff who committed the violation. He was not arrested. We covered this. Now that sheriff has resigned after pleading guilty. Let's put up the picture full mass. After pleading guilty to sexual battery regarding a groping incident with former TV judge and Fulton State Court judge Glenda Hatchett, the Bleckley County Sheriff Chris Coody has now resigned. The sheriff pled guilty to a misdemeanor sexual battery charge against Hatchett on Monday, August 21st, and then decided to step down. The sheriff confessed that he did in fact grope Judge Hatchett's breast at the Renaissance Atlanta Waverly Hotel and Convention Center bar. This happened January 2022. We brought it to you immediately. The incident took place during the Georgia Sheriff's Association meeting while Judge Hatchett was being introduced to a group of cops, a group of sheriffs at the bar, at the hotel. She says, and I quote, "For this man to come up and violate me the way he did is unspeakable," Hatchett said in court, according to WSB TV in Atlanta. As part of his sentencing, the sheriff will serve 12 months on probation. He also has to complete 40 hours of community service and an alcohol and drug course, plus pay a whopping $500 fine. He is ordered to not have any contact with the judge in the future as well. The sheriff submitted his resignation letter to the Georgia Sheriff's Association and Georgia Governor Brian Kemp after the hearing reports show. Now, who was the date? Who was with her? Sheriff Thomas Brown, the former sheriff of DeKalb County, Georgia, who now is a U.S. Marshal. Let's put it up. All right, Sheriff Thomas Brown, good individual, great public servant, legendary leadership actually. So he was the date that night. The Honorable Thomas E. Brown, who was nominated by President Joe Biden, confirmed by the Senate and appointed on October 17th, 2022 to serve as the United States Marshal for the Northern District of Georgia. He was the date during that time. Former Sheriff of DeKalb County, Thomas Brown, said he personally witnessed the violation on Coody's part and intervened. He said he was introducing Hatchett at the conference as a featured guest and turned his head for a second to return to Sheriff Coody inappropriately touching her. Quote, "As I turned to my left to focus back on the two of them, I saw his hand go down her left breast," Brown said. "I grabbed his arm." But let me just say that Thomas, you should have whooped his ass. And I say that in all due respect, dear brother. You are the police too. That conference was so full of law enforcement that everybody should have had a shock conscience when they saw this. And everybody should have ran to the defense of this woman after seeing what happened. Even the head of the Georgia Sheriff's Association was there as well. Nothing happened. So much so that the night it took place, I received a phone call from a sheriff who witnessed it in Cobb County and believed that nothing would happen. And so this sheriff wanted someone to know that will hold them accountable. Thankfully, Judge Hatchett decided to move forward with prosecuting the elected sheriff of Bleckley County, Georgia. But I want you to think about something. They're in a room full of police officers, full of cops. If they would have been in a room full of, I don't know, people like just you and I, we would have had a response. We would have done something. I submit to you that the sheriff did this because he was in a room full of cops, because he understood they would do nothing to him. That is the irony of this entire saga. The Sheriff Brown said, I grabbed his arm, I threw it off of her chest and basically said, what are you effing think you're doing? And that's basically where it ended, end quote. He provided that to the local news. According to Brown, the Sheriff Coody, seemed intoxicated as he placed his hands on the judge's breast and did so to demonstrate his connection to the heart of Georgia. Hatchett spoke out in court about how this ordeal has impacted her life. She said, and I quote, my entire professional career, I have been involved in supporting victims. I have seen in my courtroom so many victims over the years, she said. To be on this side, this is very difficult. It is important for the defendant and everyone present to understand the horrific effect this has had on me. This has cut me to the core. Before I go to the judge who oversaw this case, I want to say this about Judge Hatchett. Judge Hatchett is a friend. She started an organization here that's near and dear to my heart called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates. We work with foster children. Of the judge. I'm actually happy that this judge said what he said. You're looking at Judge Bowers. He took time out during this proceeding to thank Judge Hatchett for coming to his courtroom. He then apologized for how long this has taken to prosecute. Not his fault, but he decided to offer an apology all the same. He also apologized for what she had to go through with the sheriff. The judge said to the sheriff, to Coody, if he violates the order, no contact with Judge Hatchett, he will be locked up. Quote, I will lock you up, not a threat, simply a promise, end quote. All right. Now, naturally, my sentiment is the sheriff should be arrested because individuals who hold positions of high public trust should be held to a higher standard of law, not a normative standard of law. But that's my opinion. Sharon, thoughts here?
I would have liked to see him locked up in the same jail he once oversaw. That's what I would have liked. Judge Hatchett's such a wonderful woman, as she said. She is a remarkable woman. And I believe had she not worn a robe and been with a US Marshal, ex-sheriff, probably would have been victimized even more by the sheriff who believed he could just do whatever he wanted to her. It is sick. People don't understand what it means when you violate a woman in this way. I'm just so proud that she remained an activist, just like she did when her daughter-in-law, Kira Johnson, lost her life in childbirth, and Judge Glenda Hatchett fought for disparities in medicine to go away. She's an activist, but we need to wrap our arms around her and understand what was done here is sexual assault.
That's right. That's right. And Sharon, Thomas Brown introduced her to Sheriff Coody. When he turns around to look away, that's when the sheriff took advantage of that moment to not only violate Judge Hatchett, but to also violate Sheriff Thomas Brown too, right? Okay,